Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a topic today that one of you specifically requested, and it's a bit of a heavy one.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be looking at the connection between autism and narcissistic abuse. And
Mm.
you've given us a really fascinating collection of sources to dig into. Most
Mhm.
of them look like articles and blog posts
Yeah,
from websites that seem to be dedicated to supporting autistic individuals. So that's interesting in itself, right?
absolutely. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a need for this kind of information out there
Yeah.
to help people and support them.
Yeah, for sure. There was one article title that really stood out to me. It was Autism and Narcissist Discard and Hoovering from a website called Cheap ABA.
Okay.
And I thought, discarding and hoovering, those sound like pretty intense terms. I think a lot of our listeners might not even be familiar with them.
Yeah, you're right. They're not exactly everyday language.
So can you break it down for us? What do those terms mean?
Sure. So these terms are often used when we talk about narcissistic abuse, and essentially it's like a two-step.
Okay.
It's this manipulative tactic. So discarding is that first stage where the narcissist, they suddenly withdraw. They
Mm-hmm.
become really cold and distant.
Okay.
They might cut off communication with the
Oh,
victim,
wow.
make up excuses, or even just vanish completely,
Oh, gosh.
leaving the victim feeling totally abandoned and just confused.
Wow, that sounds just emotionally devastating. So
Yes.
what's the point? Like, why would a narcissist even do that in the first place?
Well, the goal is to create this sense of dependence in the victim
Mm-hmm.
and insecurity. They want the victim to feel completely lost
Oh.
and worthless without them. And that basically sets the stage for the next phase of the manipulation, which is that hoovering.
Hoovering. Okay, so what does that look like then?
Well, it's almost like a complete 180. It's really sudden. The narcissist suddenly reappears, often acting as if nothing even happened.
Okay.
Yeah, and they shower the victim with apologies, affection, maybe gifts, anything and everything they can think of to make the victim feel special again.
Oh, so they're trying to suck them back in.
Exactly. That's why it's called hoovering.
Right, like a vacuum cleaner.
Exactly.
Mm.
They're trying to suck the victim back into the relationship. And remember, the victim's probably still reeling from that emotional pain of the discard.
Right? Yeah.
So they're more vulnerable to these grand gestures. They want to believe that the narcissist has actually changed this time.
Oh, I bet this is especially hard for people on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, you're right.
This source specifically mentioned autistic individuals being more vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. So what makes them more susceptible?
Well, this website lays out some key reasons. Autistic individuals, they often process social cues differently,
Okay.
which means they might miss those subtle hints
Mm.
that a narcissist is starting to pull away, or those signs that their apologies aren't really genuine.
So they're not picking up on those red flags?
Right. Plus, many autistic individuals, they really value honesty and direct communication.
Hmm.
So they might take a narcissist at their word, not realizing that there's this hidden agenda,
Yeah.
and they have this desire to please,
Yeah.
coupled with their trusting nature, and that can make them more likely to just give the benefit of the doubt, even when they've already been hurt before.
Gosh, that seems like a recipe for disaster.
It can be.
To have those qualities and to run into someone who is, has narcissistic tendencies.
It's like a perfect storm, unfortunately.
Yeah. And this source also mentioned that narcissists, they might exploit, an autistic person's sensitivity to criticism.
Absolutely. That's a common tactic. They'll
It'll-
use constant put-downs
Oh, wow.
to undermine their self-esteem, making them more dependent on the narcissist for approval.
Oh, gosh.
And because autistic individuals can sometimes struggle with setting boundaries,
Yeah.
they can be easier to control and manipulate.
This is all pretty intense stuff, and I'm sure some of you listening might be relating to this a little too closely for comfort.
Yeah.
And we want to be clear, we're not trying to say that every autistic person is going to be a target, but this source is definitely highlighting some important vulnerabilities that people should be aware of.
Yes, absolutely. Awareness is key here, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge part of protecting yourself.
So what does this source suggest for people who are worried about this discard hoovering tactic? What can they do?
Well, it gives some really solid advice for recognizing and resisting it.
Great. What stood out to you?
Well, I think the first thing is just to be really vigilant
Okay.
about sudden changes in behavior.
Hmm.
Like if someone who's always been attentive and loving
Mm-hmm.
becomes distant and critical all of a sudden, that's a huge red flag.
Right. So being aware of those subtle shifts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about overanalyzing, but
Mhm.
just paying attention to the overall dynamic and how it's changing.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's also, I imagine, really hard when you're in that situation to remember that the narcissist's behavior is not a reflection on you.
That's so important to remember.
Yeah.
It's not about you. They're acting out their own issues and insecurities.
Mm-hmm. That's really powerful.
It's crucial.
Yeah. But I imagine it must be so hard to internalize that message when you're in the thick of it, you know?
Absolutely. And that's why self-care and a good support system are so important.
Yeah.
This website really stresses that. Surround yourself with people you can trust.
Okay.
People who see your worth and can offer a different perspective.
So important.
Yeah. And doing things that make you feel good can also be a huge help.
So it sounds like this source is really pushing for building a strong sense of self-worth
Absolutely.
and resilience to be able to counter these tactics, these manipulative tactics.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is this. It can be really difficult. Avoid engaging with those hoovering attempts.
Oh, so even though it feels counterintuitive, you have to kind of just step away?
You got it.
Yeah.
Breaking free from that cycle means resisting the urge to get sucked back in by those grand gestures.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the narcissist is seeking control, not a genuine connection.
Yeah. So even though it's hard, you have to prioritize your own well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And recognize that you deserve more than a relationship based on control and manipulation.
That's so true. And I think all of this underscores how important it is to have open and honest conversations about these really difficult challenges
Yeah,
that autistic individuals can face.
absolutely.
Wow, that was a lot to take in. It's really amazing how much depth there is to this topic. You know, as we move into some of the other sources you gave us,
Okay.
I noticed a few that touch on challenges that autistic individuals can face, you know, beyond narcissistic abuse, challenges that can come from, you know, societal structures and perceptions,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, how some of those societal challenges connect back to some of the core traits of autism, like sensory overload, social situations. We've got articles here about black and white thinking.
Yeah, we hear these terms tossed around a lot,
Right.
but I think it's easy to kind of gloss over them without really understanding, like, what those experiences are actually like for
Yeah.
autistic people.
Exactly. I mean, take sensory overload, for example. For a lot of autistic people, the world can just feel like this constant barrage of intense sensory input.
Yeah.
You know, sounds, lights, smells, textures, everything can be amplified and overwhelming.
I can only imagine how exhausting that must be. Is that where autistic burnout comes in?
It is.
Because I saw that mentioned in a couple of the articles as well.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And it's serious. For many autistic individuals, it's this state of exhaustion that can be brought on by constantly trying to navigate a world that's really not designed for their needs,
Right.
sensory needs,
Yeah.
or their social communication style.
So it's not just about being tired. It's
Yeah.
about being emotionally and mentally drained
Right.
from that constant effort of trying to fit in.
You got it. And that's where masking comes in,
Yeah, masking.
which is something that a lot of autistic individuals do just to cope with those social expectations.
I've heard of the term,
Yeah.
but to be honest, I'm not sure I fully understand it.
So basically, it's like suppressing or hiding your autistic traits to try to appear more neurotypical.
Oh,
So things like forcing eye contact,
wow.
maybe mimicking certain social behaviors,
Oh, gosh.
or even suppressing stimming, which is those, repetitive movements or sounds that can actually be very calming and regulating for autistic people.
Right.
But, they might feel pressured to suppress those in certain environments.
So they're putting on a performance, basically.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. It takes so much energy.
Yeah.
It can lead to, feeling really inauthentic and isolated. Imagine having to constantly be monitoring yourself and adjusting your behavior to meet other people's expectations.
I bet that takes a real toll on someone's sense of self.
It can, definitely. And unfortunately, masking can also make diagnosis harder.
Oh, how so?
Because if someone is really good at masking, they might not even be recognized as autistic.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another term that I saw in one of the articles that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
The autism tax?
Yeah.
What does that refer to?
So the autism tax refers to all of those additional costs, and we're talking about financial and emotional,
Oh, okay.
that autistic people often face just because they're existing in a world that wasn't designed for them,
Yeah.
just for being who they are.
Can you give us, like, some examples of what that might look like in real life?
Yeah, sure. So financially, it could mean paying for, those specialized therapies or support services that can be really expensive, and they're not always covered by insurance. right?
Right.
It could also mean facing discrimination in employment or having to work harder to navigate a workplace that's not really accommodating to their needs. And then emotionally, it's about that toll that comes with feeling different all the time.
Yeah.
Misunderstood.
Yeah.
Like you're not meeting those societal expectations.
So that's kind of like this invisible burden that they carry.
It is.
Just for being who they are.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something we really need to be aware of and actively work to, alleviate.
It makes me think back to that first article we were talking about,
Right.
like about the narcissistic abuse.
Yeah.
Do you see a connection between these societal challenges that we're talking about now and that vulnerability to manipulation that we discussed earlier?
That's a really insightful connection you're making there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's already feeling all this pressure
Yeah.
to mask who they are, just to fit in, they might be even more susceptible to someone who seems to accept and love them
Right.
for, who they're pretending to be,
Yeah.
even though it's not their true self.
It's almost like the narcissist is offering this false sense of belonging and validation, which can be really tempting for someone who's constantly feeling like an outsider.
Absolutely. And that's why understanding these broader societal issues is so important.
Yeah.
It helps us see how those vulnerabilities can develop and how we can create a more supportive, more inclusive environment for autistic individuals.
So it's not just about, addressing individual instances of abuse or discrimination.
Yeah.
It's about changing the system as a whole to be more accommodating.
Exactly.
And understanding.
And a big part of that is challenging all that stigma and the misconceptions surrounding autism.
And speaking of misconceptions, one thing that jumped out at me from several of these articles was that they emphasized how diverse the autistic experience really is. We talk about autistic individuals as if it's this one big group.
Right.
But I'm realizing that that's not true at all.
You're absolutely right. Autism is a spectrum, and every individual on that spectrum is unique, right? They have their own strengths, challenges, ways of experiencing the world. It's really important to avoid generalizations and recognize the individual person behind the diagnosis.
So we need to kind of move beyond stereotypes and see each person as a whole person with all their own unique qualities.
Yes. And that leads us to another really important concept that came up in several of your sources, the idea of neurodiversity.
Neurodiversity, what does that mean exactly?
So neurodiversity is the idea that neurological differences, like autism, are just a natural part of human diversity.
Oh, okay.
It's about celebrating those differences, not seeing them as deficits or disorders.
So instead of trying to fix autism or cure it, we should be focusing on making a world that embraces those differences.
Exactly. Imagine a world where autistic people are valued for their unique perspectives and talents and ways of thinking.
Yeah.
A world where they can be their authentic selves and not feel this pressure to conform to neurotypical standards.
That sounds like a much better world.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. More just.
Much more equitable. And it's a world we can create.
That's inspiring, but I imagine it can also feel overwhelming. Especially for people who are just starting to learn about all of this. There's just so much to learn and to unlearn. Where do you suggest people even begin?
Well, I think the first step is just being open. To learning and to listening to autistic voices. There are so many amazing autistic advocates, writers, artists out there sharing their experiences and insights.
So it's about amplifying those voices.
Exactly. And there are also incredible organizations that are dedicated to, supporting autistic people.
Right.
And promoting neurodiversity.
Do any specific ones come to mind that you'd recommend?
Sure. I mean, you mentioned Cheap ABA.
Yeah.
Which seems like a great resource from what we've seen so far. And then there are, the more well-established organizations like the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. The National Autistic Society. The Autism Society of America.
I like how you're highlighting the importance of community.
It's so important.
Even that first source we looked at, that one about narcissistic abuse, they also talked about how important it is to have a strong support system.
Oh, it's crucial. Finding a community where you feel seen and understood can be so healing. So empowering. And for autistic people, connecting with other autistic people can be especially validating.
It's like finding your tribe, people who really get you.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that sense of belonging can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Especially to counter that isolation and self-doubt.
Yeah.
That can come from living in a world that doesn't always get it.
I really understand. Yeah. It's like you said earlier, creating a world where autistic individuals can just be themselves without feeling pressured to mask or to conform.
Absolutely. Something worth working towards, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. This has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like we've learned so much. I feel incredibly inspired by, the resilience and the strength of the autistic community. Yeah.
But there's still more to explore
Right.
in your stack of sources. Before we wrap up this part, can you give us a little preview of what's coming up next?
Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. This is the final part of our exploration into autism and narcissistic abuse. It's been really eye-opening, to say the least.
It really has.
And I have to say, even though we've been focusing on some pretty tough stuff, I also feel this sense of hope.
I do too.
Possibility as we've been digging into these sources.
It's been a real journey, hasn't it? And it's amazing to see, how much progress we've made in terms of understanding and accepting neurodiversity.
Right.
But there's definitely still work to do.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to recognizing the unique struggles of, certain groups within the autistic community.
Yeah. Before we wrap up today,
Okay.
there were a couple of topics that I wanted to circle back to that I think we only touched on briefly.
Okay.
One is this idea of misdiagnosis,
Yeah.
particularly in women. Okay.
And the other is the unique challenges faced by autistic individuals from marginalized communities.
Important topics for sure.
Yeah. So let's dive back into those. First, that misdiagnosis piece. Why do you think it is that autistic women are often diagnosed later in life or even misdiagnosed altogether?
Well, it's complex, but a lot of it has to do with, how autism has been studied and understood historically.
Okay.
It seems like a lot of that early research
Yeah.
was primarily focused on boys,
Right.
which led to a pretty male-centric view of what autism actually looks like.
So are you saying that autistic women, they might actually express their autism differently than do?
Women.
Yeah.
We're starting to understand that autistic women, they often present differently than autistic men.
Okay.
They might be better at masking their traits. They might have different interests. And their self-communication challenges might be more subtle,
If the way we diagnose autism is mainly based on how it shows up in boys.
Then it makes sense that a lot of women are being missed.
Exactly.
Slipping through the cracks.
And that can have huge consequences for people, right?
Absolutely. Imagine living with something and you don't even know you have it.
And not understanding why you're struggling.
Yeah, and facing all these challenges and not knowing why.
Exactly. It can lead to isolation, self-doubt,
Yeah.
even mental health problems.
And it's interesting because several of these sources also pointed out that, autistic individuals are sometimes misdiagnosed with other conditions like anxiety or depression.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, because the symptoms can overlap.
Yeah, it's like you're treating the symptoms without getting to the root of the problem.
Exactly. So what needs to happen? Like, what can we do to fix this?
Well, I think awareness is key. We have to educate healthcare professionals
Right.
about the different ways that autism can present, especially in women.
Yeah.
We need better diagnostic tools, tools that are more sensitive and take into account, the female experience of autism.
Right. More tailored.
And we need to create a culture where women feel comfortable
Yes.
seeking out a diagnosis and support.
I also think about that idea of masking that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
If women are, more likely to mask their traits, then it's understandable why they might not be noticed,
Right.
As easily.
Yeah, it really highlights how important it is to address the pressure that leads people to mask in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just about diagnosing autism. It's about creating a world where autistic people can just be themselves.
Absolutely. And that brings us to those unique challenges faced by autistic people from marginalized communities.
Yes, let's talk about that. What stood out to you in those sources, especially regarding autistic people of color?
Well, one thing that really struck me was this idea of compounded discrimination.
Oh, so it's not just one thing.
It's not just one thing.
It's multiple things all coming together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Autistic people of color, they're not only facing the stigma that comes with autism,
Right.
but also, the systemic racism that's so pervasive in our society.
And that can create all sorts of problems.
Oh, absolutely. Access to resources and support,
Yeah.
higher risk of misdiagnosis, even mistreatment
Yeah.
by law enforcement, sadly.
It's like a double burden that they're carrying.
It is. And it's so important that we acknowledge and address these intersecting forms of oppression. We can't talk about autism awareness without also talking about racial justice.
Yeah. It's about dismantling those systems of inequality and creating a world where everybody has a fair chance.
Exactly.
Regardless of their neurology or anything else.
Yeah.
And that means being intentional about inclusivity, right?
It does. We need to make sure that autistic people of color have a seat at the table, that their voices are heard in these conversations about autism. Their experiences need to be represented in research, advocacy, and they need access to culturally sensitive, competent support and resources.
It sounds like we need a much more intersectional approach to this whole issue.
I think so, definitely.
Yeah.
We can't just have a one-size-fits-all approach to autism.
Right.
We have to recognize the diversity of experiences within the autistic community.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like we've learned so much.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm just so grateful
I am too.
that we had the opportunity to explore all of this with you.
The pleasure was mine, honestly. And I really hope, that this has encouraged our listeners to keep learning about autism and neurodiversity.
There's so much to learn.
There is.
And to discover. And remember, awareness is just the first step.
It is.
We have to take action.
Yeah.
Challenge those stigmas and create a world that's truly inclusive.
Absolutely.
And accepting of everyone.
Beautiful. If you're feeling lost or you're not sure where to start, reach out to some of the organizations we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, good advice.
There's so many amazing people out there ready to help.
Thank you all for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.